What's up, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Operation Ivy. We're going to go back to the 1991 compilation, which includes the 89 album Energy, as well as a couple EPs, or an EP and some tracks taken from a compilation. And yeah, we're going to listen to the tune Junkie's Running Dry. And for reasons that will become apparent, I'm going to start by explaining a work of philosophical descriptive fiction, which is to say, it's not actually a short story because it doesn't take place in time. It's merely a description of a place. And yeah, it's by Ursula Le Guin. I think it was written in the early 70s, but it's called The Ones Who Walk Away. And it's about a place called Omelas. And so this place is a utopian, ideal community. Everyone has what they need. Everyone is very prosperous. It's a very happy public society, and everyone is exactly in the place and the station they would like to be. So it's this utopian society, but there's a deep, dark secret about this utopian society. Down in a basement, essentially a dungeon beneath Omelas, there is a child who has never done anything materially wrong, and yet who is held in bondage in perpetuity in very squalid conditions. Now, it's not explained why this child's confinement is necessary, but it is considered to be necessary to the prosperity and utopian character of Omelas. So even though a number of people who are aware of this dark secret consider it repulsive and a very unpleasant truth, their lives are so happy and so pleasant and so acceptable that they're willing to turn a blind eye and pretend that they don't know it, or to justify it by saying, but look at how many people live a great life, even if this little kid unfortunately has to live this awful life. Now, again, it's not explained why this would be the case. Because I like speculating about things, I've always wondered, like, okay, well, we could say maybe that the kid would be in line to inherit an imperial throne, but perhaps the monarchy was abolished, and the only way to ensure that no one would try to restore it by using who would be the rightful heir is to imprison him, let no one know that he even exists anymore, and so on. Now, again, that's not in Ursula Le Guin's story, but that's where my brain tries to explain why a kid's confinement, in solitary confinement in bad conditions, would allow a village or a community to otherwise be prosperous. But the reality is, some young people, upon learning the deep, dark secret of Omelas, are so repulsed by this, so bothered by this, that their desire to live a happy and prosperous life is not enough to make them morally ignore the immoral and unethical plight of this kid, and they walk away from Omelas. And no one knows where they go, but they never come back. And so that's the idea of the story, the ones who walk away, people who are not willing to be complicit in a system that is unjust, even if it means they're putting their own life into uncertainty or peril. So, the reason I explain this is because in the song Junkie's Running Dry, and again, Jesse Michaels' lyrics I think are fantastic, and this is something that I didn't notice when I first heard this song back in the day when I was first getting into Operation Ivy, which again was like basically the mid-90s, early to mid-90s. But I think he may have read that because his story is about growing up, and ultimately, for most people, eventually, even if they had this youthful idealism where they wanted to change things and make the world a better and more fair place, eventually they end up working a 9-to-5 job, and they basically get a car and a house, and they're not muckraking or being a rabble-rouser in the way they thought they might be, or at the very least there are other concerns and obligations that prevent them from perhaps manifesting or expressing that same enthusiasm to change the world that they did when they were younger. And Jesse's saying in the lyrics that, some of these people that I really respected for walking away, I couldn't do that. I was, so impressed by the way that they didn't want to be part of these preset ways. They wanted to walk away and, not come back to this society. But he's saying that a number of people that he used to respect in that regard have ultimately gotten trapped by the game, and now, like a junkie running dry, like a junkie running out of a drug, they're scrambling to fit into every little box and every little normal aspect of adult life, working a 40-hour work week and trying to make sure that, they have their financial affairs in order. And suddenly, they're the very thing that they tried to avoid. And Jesse is saying, I grew up too slow because I don't want to go. I don't want to be part of this race. So it's like he'd like to walk away. He'd like to, leave Omelas, if you will, but he can't quite, he doesn't think he has the character or the wherewithal to do that. But even more complicated, or even more confusingly, the very people that he respected for putting their ethics and their sense of not wanting to be, on a corrupt train. You can't be neutral on a moving train. The very people that he respected for walking away seemingly have come back to the system and are now, frantically holding on to be part of it, like a junkie running dry. So it's a really interesting coming of age, trying to maintain that youthful, rebellious spirit that many people have, as a teenager in their early 20s. And indeed, that's part of what drew me to punk rock and acid techno and that kind of music as well. I enjoyed things that were off the beaten path, that were perhaps, not satisfied with, oppressive war and the destruction of people who've done nothing more than just to try to live their lives and so on, which again, circling back to the Omelas metaphor, when I eventually encountered that philosophical work of description, of fictional description, I was not only very impressed by it, and by the way, I discovered it through a J-drama called Mozu, which is about, Mozu is their word for shrike, which is a kind of bird that impales its prey on like a spike or a pointed fence or so on. In any case, there's a part where they talk about that narrative, philosophical, or not narrative, descriptive fiction by Ursula Le Guin, and I was so interested by it, I went and read it. And then it was like, oh my God, that Operation Ivy song, the ones who walked away, I think he even uses the phrase. So yeah, bottom line, it makes me wonder if Jesse Michaels has read The Ones Who Walked Away, sometimes just called Omelas, but that I think, is not actually the name that it was originally published under. In any case, given that I've been talking for 7 or 8 minutes, which, let's be honest, it always happens in the punk rock reactions, but let's get it. This is Operation Ivy, heard here on the compilation from 1991, which is basically, like I said, their one album plus an EP and some tracks from a compilation. And the tune is called Junkie's Running Dry. And I apologize, I thought I had the folder open, but I don't, but we'll be there in 1 second. It is track number 20. And away we go. perfection. Again, like their catalog is so small, but they were just such perfection when they were around. You know, the thrashy yet also smooth and skank-filled punk ska, or rather ska-punk flavor to their music. Jesse's amazing lyrics. Admittedly, there's some bits. I think there's the opening of "Here We Go Again," which I think was written by Lint, aka Tim Armstrong. But yeah, the majority of their catalog is written by Jesse, and his lyrics are just amazing. They were just this lightning in a bottle, basically. And I said it before, again, I respect Rancid and the other groups that these people have been a part of. But like I said, you know, for me, Operation Ivy was the magical, very special configuration that unfortunately was so short-lived. In any case, I apologize for talking about Omelas for like 7 or 8 minutes, but either way, it's a tune that I've always enjoyed, both for, you know, the sentiment as I understood it before, which, you know, remains essentially unchanged, but with this layer that, given that opening line, that I really think maybe Jesse Michaels had read that philosophical work and was perhaps inspired to include that kind of perspective in a song that, you know, he might have still otherwise written. So in any case, let me know what you think of this one. Luca and I will see you next time. Or she actually lets go of my shirt. Peace.